And I remember I saw Vince, outside in the peripheral, and I just glared at him, and he looked back at me like, you know, want a piece of me or something? Yeah, it was very intense. And I thought that was my last pay-per-view.
What's going on, wrestling fans? It is I, Steve Fall. Welcome back to 10 Count Media. On today's edition, I'm talking to one of my favorite past guests. It's Sean Mooney. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. You sure you don't say that to all your guests, Steve? Let's be straight here.
I'm going to be completely straight. No, I haven't. Because
I'm going to take the compliment anyway. How are you, my friend?
Take it. I'm doing great. 2 years ago, we did this. We blew up the internet with so many stories about the past. Yeah, we're hitting about 2 years now.
Time flies. How did you get by without me? How did you do?
I tried.
I
years called
of shows
you
without Mooney.
I was calling. I was texting, sending pigeon carriers. No response. But now I got the response. So here we are today talking about.
You got through my people.
Yeah, I went through your people.
Yeah.
Your twin sister, I believe, is the person I have to talk to.
My old Uncle Mo, who was in the entertainment industry for many years.
Classic.
Mel Shyster, my agent. Yeah, Mel Shyster, my agent. He's tough bail bondsman and talent.
Jameson maybe was involved. I think a little Jameson, a little bushwhackers looking at my face. It got crazy, but we made it. But we made it here today. And over the years, I've interviewed so many wrestlers, and they always talk about strange places and locations they've been. But is there a strange location that you were at in the height of the WWE when you being involved that a fan was like, "Hey, can I get an autograph?" Where's the strangest place a fan has asked you for an autograph?
I honestly, one time it was in at an arena where I was in the stall. Yeah. And a guy did the thing, which you would imagine is kind of like slides it under. And I'm like, are you kidding? Like Okerlund used to walk into the bathrooms, and it was always, and it worked every time, to drop us laughing. How about a courtesy flush, pal? But that actually happened one time. And at urinals, it just you're standing there, and this guy's over there, and he kind of looks at it and knows it's you, like, can I wash my hands before we do this? I don't know. I don't even know yet. But some strange places. But also, I remember getting on. It was a shuttle or something like that, and somebody came up to the window, and they had those drop down. It was like one of those school buses. Remember the old one? And they came up. Can I get it? And I'm like, what do you do? And they like threw their little pad at me with a pen, and the guy, we're like driving off, and the guy's starting to drive off because the driver didn't know what the hell was going on back there. And I'm like, and they're running along the side of it, and I just threw it out to them, and the pen
like lands in a puddle. He's like, no,
yeah, right. Yeah, but I always felt if a person was that desperate to that they'd want my autograph, I figured, what the hell, I should give it to them, And I've always had that attitude when people send me stuff to this day, and it's so random and kind of crazy, but it happens a couple of times a month. I'll get a piece of mail from somewhere. Just got this thing yesterday from Canada that I think it's usually it's one of those collector cards, because until now, I didn't have an action figure or anything like that, Steve, which we need to talk about. But that's usually, and they send stuff from all over the world. It's just amazing to me that this many years later that they track me down. They'll send it to the station, where I'm a newsreader. And I figure if somebody makes that effort to do that, I think on eBay with it signed, you can get $5. So I don't really worry about them getting rich off of it. And I just figure, if you do something, if they take the time, and I have another great story to tell you about the signings too after that. But I always do. If they send stuff to the station or something like that, I'll sign it and send it back. It's only too crazy. I don't like the ones that people just send you the card, like, or without a self-addressed envelope. Like I'm supposed to
you're gonna pay.
Get the envelope, get the stamp, and send it back to them. but I always, if they send a little note or something, then I feel okay. It's a personal touch. They're not a collector or something, and I think that's great. So anyway, I want to tell you this story with, my wife gets on me because I'll collect these things and I won't get to them right away, and so there'll be a stack of them, and she'll say, just sit down and do this, and they're all, just put them in the envelope and send them away. Well, I used to have when I had a production company here where I live, it was at my brother's building. And so years after that, people would send mail there initially. They found that I had Moonrise Productions. And anyway, he brought this envelope over to me. And there was just a bunch of this stuff in there, these letters I'd gotten that they had collected and nobody gave them to me. And I'm talking dating back to like 2009.
Oh my.
Right. And there was, it was maybe, I don't know, 10 of them or something like that had been there that nobody ever gave to me. And so I opened them up, and some of them were really, it was, cool, the stuff they say. It's wonderful to get those letters from people where they say, they talk about, I watched you when I was a kid. I watched the Coliseum home videos. My dad and I used to watch them together. I've had these, remember, would you please? So we're talking almost 15 years ago. But I said, what the hell? I'm going to sign these and I'm going to send them to them with a little note saying, better late than never. I apologize. I did not receive these when you sent them. I hope you're at the same address. But if you do, hey, send me a little note to my email address, which is primetimemooney@gmail.com. And let me know if you get this. And I sent all of them. I think, like I said, it was about 10. A few of them were the collector stuff. And I just, I saved those and I send them to other people who send me things that are on like a 3x5 card and they don't have anything. Mm-hmm. So I send them the card, so I'll save them. But there was about 10 of them that were, legit, and the letters were great. And I got these emails back, Steve, of one guy said, I kind of cursed you for years, thinking, what a jerk that you didn't send this to him. And he goes, and I have to tell you that you blew me away. I can't believe that you, after this many years, that you would send it to me, and it is now, proudly sitting on my my mantle with my other WWE. Another one, the guy said that really touched me was that his father was ill now when they had sent this, and he goes, I'm going over to the house this afternoon, and I'm going to take the card with me. And I just wanted to let him know that Mooney didn't forget us. And man, I was like, that's crazy. But I did, it was kind of a social experiment, I guess, just to see. And I did get about 3 or 4 emails back. Maybe the rest of them were, didn't live there anymore or what, but I figured I sent it out there into the universe and see what would happen. And it was wonderful.
That's amazing to hear. Yeah. Because again, so many memories that you've created for so many people. Then, again, as a story goes, like Ringo Starr would get all these letters and he would actually sit down and pen to paper and write back to them. Obviously, you can't send everyone the response, but
I can.
With you being able to, not being Ringo Starr,
yeah.
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome to hear, because it's so cool, because now you see wrestlers in today's world at an airport and like 50 dudes pop out of nowhere with like 5 to 10 Funko Pops, just like sign it. Like that's not your core memory. That's you trying to make a buck. And I get it. Right. We're all hustling. We're all trying to make it through life. I get it. But for you personally, you're in the stall, so many years ago, and someone's sliding shit underneath there trying to get you to sign it. Like, when the boys were talking to you about situations like that, did you ever hear stories of like, there's Warrior, there's Hogan, there's Beefcake, at the airport, and people are just figuring out where they are and getting them to sign 10 things? Or was it the simple sign one thing, thank you, but why are you bothering me at 5 a.m. at the airport?
No, it was, and at the height of all that, you could imagine it was insane. It wasn't just airports. I remember whatever our base hotel was, there would be, 300, 400, 500 people just hanging out in front near the lobby. They couldn't get into the hotel, but they would just, hang out, hoping somehow they, see somebody. I'm sure it happens to other celebrities as well. But yeah, it was crazy. And I was certainly never at that level that they were at, but I could see what, sometimes it was much. It was a bit much.
Yeah.
And some people were, and the boys were the same way. If it was a kid who, they genuinely knew was just a big fan, with his dad or his mom or something like that, a lot of them would do. Brett was especially great with that. He would spot a kid or whatever, he'd go, cross over and go through people to get to that kid to do that. And after a while, I mean, who's genuine and who isn't. A lot of those guys would show up with the notebooks, the 3 ring binders with the pages. They didn't care about, necessarily about you. I'm sure they were big fans of wrestling, but it wasn't a personal thing to you. And so I think that, back then, the guys, they were just bombarded. It was rock star status. And,
right.
People have compared that for years, but it's the absolute truth. They were rock stars.
Of course, the rock star style as well, affects you traveling around the world, partying, having a good time. But also with rock star status, you get books, you get posters, magazines, even perhaps action figures. And back in the day at LJNs, it Hasbro's, but they didn't make Sean Mooney's, Gorilla Monsoon's, Mean Gene's, Bobby Heenan's, Lord Alfred Hayes's. They didn't make those. They thought, hey, maybe we're not going to sell them. They didn't have referees, no Vince McMahon's. It was very odd. But in
they didn't think people would care.
Trust me, we would have bought them. Everyone would have bought those things. But with the logo on it, with the WF gold logo. But now in today's world, the heavens have smiled upon you, and they finally have given you an action figure. Can you tell me the process and how long this took? And when can we purchase this? And when can I buy 10?
Steve, decades in the making, my friend. It was, I would just refuse it had to be the absolutely perfect mold, as you could imagine. No, it was, decades in the making. They're literally, because I just missed, I don't know how much after I left in 93, but, Gene got an action figure, and, they had other ones that they made, Gorilla and Bobby, and they, broadened the group that they did. And I wasn't one of them. And over the years, people had approached me about doing something like that, or people had just made them. When I heard from a few people when I was doing the podcast that they were, pretty cool, but it wasn't on a grand scale that was, legit, that they were going to actually market them and the whole thing. But, Mitch with Hastel Toys, which is HASTTEL, and it's play on Hasbro and Mattel, the word. And he's built a wonderful company doing these action figures of, and I don't want to say second tier or lower tier. I think it's just, superstars and other professional wrestlers who, for whatever reason, didn't make the Mattel, whatever their model is to do these, or they just, they like me missed the era for these to be made. And he has his collection is just amazing of the people that he's done, and has these coming out all the time. And he called me. It was probably a year ago when this whole process started, and said, would you be interested in collaborating with us on this? I was like, sure, because they had a great reputation. I checked with a few of my friends who knew that world, and they started the whole thing. And they basically went and collected images. I didn't have to go in the green suit or something like that, but but through the whole thing, that he sent me all of these prototypes, and first they were 3D drawings where they could see what you'd look like, and it's just amazing how great it came out. I was really surprised. It was funny when they first sent me some images, of the prototype. They have those kind of standard body type that they use, and it's the wrestler type, and they have my head on this thing, and I'm like, Mitch, could you beef it up a little? You should have seen this thing. I mean, it was like, and he said, no. Yeah, we have the announcer.
I'd be like, here you are. but with a Mooney head.
Yeah. Just like
no same shirt, no, all the muscle.
Kurt and I were so similar in body types.
Body type.
Exactly.
Okay. It's like confusing for a second. I'm like, is this
Mooney or is that
you?
Yeah,
perfect.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So and Mitch is like, no, it's just the workup. Yours is going to be a little less. So, but it still looks pretty good. It looks like I'm in pretty good shape still with the action figure. But they just got them. It's that whole process where they send them out of the country and they get made, and then they send them over, and then and he just literally a week ago, Mitch got in touch with me and told me, yeah, they're in and they're ready. And what's beautiful about it is that when this whole thing started, and I asked him, I said, are you doing one for Lord Alfred Hayes? And he said, that's a great idea. And he got in touch with Kirsten, who's Lord Alfred Hayes' son, who's a great guy. I remember him when he was just a boy, but he's been very successful, and they tracked him down and got permission. And so there is a Lord Alfred Hayes action figure as well, which is amazing that Alfred, there may be one out there, but they haven't had an action figure on his lordship. So they did the whole design. They really hadn't done one with the announcer like me. And so it's got the microphone, and he was very meticulous about the detail of it. The blazer that I wore, the colors that we wore. We actually had, if people will remember, we had WWF ties. We wore I had a blue one and a cranberry one. Vince was very into the whole, we at one point I had 5 different colored blazers, powder blue, cranberry, like Gorilla wore. But for what I did, I was like, no, I wear the blue blazer. That's me. I didn't wear the other ones. I had a gray one, I think, that I wore on Spotlight when I did that. But for the event center, which most people knew me from, or backstage interviews, or you'd see me with my blue blazer with the WWF logo on the pocket. And so I told them about, the ties. And so if you look at it, it's, that's that solid tie. And they couldn't put the WWF or WWE logo on there, but they put the Hastel Toy logo on it. But it's the same color. It's that orange, patch. And I don't know if I showed you, Steve, but I still have one of the blazers I saved with the original patch that I break out once in a while. And people have wanted to buy that thing, but it's the one thing that I've held on to over the years. But that's what's so cool about these action figures, is that they really did pay attention to the detail. And okay, so Alfred's got one like that too, but they did an announce team. A lot of people don't know. I mean, I'm sure you did hear Alfred and I do play-by-play a lot. That wasn't our main gig in the United States, but in the UK and on Coliseum videos, we would retract those matches. It's all Alfred and me. And so there's an announce team coming out of action figures with Alfred and I in the tuxedos with headsets. And those are going to come out, I don't know when the next release is. So you can get the announcer one now, and they're selling them in sets. They have, at the other part of the group is Alfred. I need to look at it, but there's like 6 of them that they're releasing, and then you can buy them in 4, or you can buy them singles, whatever. But it's HastelToy.com. You just go there. We're right on the front page right now because we're the newest ones that are out. But it's HASTT, 2 T's EL.com, and I hope they check them out. And the other thing we need, which is really cool about it, the timing of this is that I have not been, Steve, to the UK since Alfred and I were over there.
Wow.
We went over there for a show they did at Royal Albert Hall, and then of course SummerSlam '92, which remains my most favorite event. And so I'm going over for the For the Love of Wrestling convention, which is happening the 15th and 16th of February in Manchester. And I haven't been over there. I was going to go over there before the pandemic. They had me set up to go over because I have a special connection to the folks in the United Kingdom. And as I mentioned, I still get mail. I get from them over there quite often. And the reason for that is when we started the whole international push to go out of the United States, the United Kingdom was the first stop. The United Kingdom was the place. And we were on Sky Television over there, Sky TV, which was a subscription cable. It was one of the first over there. And so you had to pay for it to see the WWF stuff. So really your only other way to see the WWE material was to get the Coliseum home videos, which, I did many of those. And they just, took dark matches and all kinds of stuff that they put on these tapes that were, God, some of them, I don't know how many hours long they were. I just remember I used to do the wraparounds. I'm like, how many can you put in a tape? My God, guys. But that was and people would go to video stores and rent them. That's how they were introduced to the superstars of the World Wrestling Federation, WWE. And I was all over those because I hosted them. I did the wraparounds with Alfred or by myself, whatever. And then also Alfred and I did the play-by-play, or I did them with Gorilla, or I did them with Jesse. Sometimes we'd get to grab him if he was in town for that, whatever those days we were there. So when I first went over there, and I was pretty well known in the United States when we were at that peak. I'd be recognized when I went to places and that kind of thing. But I was certainly not on the level of a superstar. I wasn't that level of stuff. Mm-hmm. So when we went over to the UK, one of the first times, and we had everybody over there, and I remember we were at a hotel, and remember I told you how people would hang out. Well, it was crazy over there because we were just over there. It was all new. I mean, it was just people were insane for the content, and we were sitting in this bar area that it had a little, maybe like a 3-foot wrought iron thing surrounding it, but it was inside the hotel lobby. Mm-hmm. But they would allow people to come in there, but they couldn't go past the gate.
Right.
And I remember we were sitting there, there was nobody around, and they must have opened the doors because all of a sudden there was this gigantic rush of people everywhere. And there weren't any wrestlers around, but it was the announce team. I think Gorilla was there, Bobby was there, we're sitting, Gene may have been there. And they rush in there and they see us and they they run over there. Well, I've been used to whenever we were around those guys, I just kind of sat back. I mean, there's Sean, but they wanted Bobby and Gorilla went over. Well, these people went over and they saw me and they're like, there's the lad. And they all came over to me. And of course they wanted to see them too. But I mean, just the reaction to it was, I'd never experienced that being around those guys. And I was like, what the hell? What's going on here? Well, then it hit me. They're talking, I think we've talked before about how Gene used to tell me when I did the event center to localize stuff. And I used to get those travel guides and I'd go through and I'd find the pub or the bars and different places that people might go so that I'd sound like I'd been there.
Yeah.
Many of these towns I'd never been to unless it was an arena where we went in, out. Yeah. And so I did the same thing when I was doing stuff for the event center. When we would start going over there, I did event centers for the UK specifically that we customized those markets. And I did the same damn thing. I would say, to go to Patty's Pub up around the corner. I know you're all going to be there, and they love me. I'm Sean Mooney, an Irish lad. And that's why, because I was customized. They knew me, they knew me, didn't know me, but they knew me because I was talking about stuff that they did. And I was the first one to really start bringing that. And then of course the Coliseum videos and being on Sky Television. And I tell you, it was a heady experience. I mean, where people they found my hotel room and were slipping notes under the door, females.
Hello there, Mr. Mooney.
I didn't want to leave the United Kingdom.
I'm staying here.
England loves me.
Then that's why SummerSlam 92 is your favorite. It seems like.
Yeah. Well, for a number of reasons, but yeah, it was pretty crazy. And then of course I had people like Bobby and Gene to put me right back on the ground, bring those feet up, and remind me I was just Mooney, and You're the guy that you're the mic stand.
Just hold the mic. Just hold the mic, Mooney. That's hilarious.
Don't step on anybody's feet and get where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, get in and get out. Don't deal.
But I'm really looking forward to going over to this as I rambled on there. But it's an amazing show. I really hadn't looked at the lineup they've got there, but Flair's going to be there. Sting, Lex Luger is going. JBL, Mick Foley, Jake Roberts. Papa Shango is going to be there. I haven't seen Papa Shango, and I didn't even know he was still with us. And he's going to be there. And I heard that he's in great shape.
Yeah, I was talking to him the other day on Facebook. Actually, I'm setting some up with him right now. Actually, so the Godfather, Papa Shango.
Yeah. I know him as Papa Shango. The guy, he's great stuff. So
hilarious from Voodoo Doctor to Pimp.
Right. Well, he's a versatile performer, shall we say? But
professional wrestling.
But it's I didn't know anything about the show. I didn't when they approached me, so I always do my homework. I don't do many of anything, you know that, and so it's a bit of a homecoming for me to go over there, and I have no idea if anybody's going to remember me, but
let's pump the brakes right there. They're going to remember you, okay?
Yeah. We'll see. And then my wife's never been to London, so we're going to spend a couple of days there. I wanted to go to Ireland. That's still, if you can believe it, I still haven't been there. And it's top of my bucket list, but it just logistically just wasn't going to work. And I don't want to go there for 3 days. When I go, I want to be able to spend a week or something. Yes. I don't want to just touch the homeland and then head back. So I'm really looking forward to it.
That's awesome to hear. So you talked about so many things right there. I love it so much. So one thing is you brought up streaming. You brought up how pretty much that to see you in the UK, they have to pay a premium price to watch it. And recently the WWE made its debut on Netflix with a Monday Night Raw. And you were on the first episode of Raw. Now we are in 2025 on Netflix. What a night. I watched it. But the thing that I want to hear your opinion on is Hulk Hogan walks out, 18,000 people boo him out of the building. What are your thoughts on this? Why do you think they booed him, and what's next for Hogan?
Yeah, I was really, really surprised by that because I thought we'd kind of gotten over all of the stuff and that he'd been welcomed back into the WWE. Fences were mended. And I had this discussion the other day. You can't deny Hulk Hogan is the single, really. If I had to choose one person who has done more for professional wrestling and making it what it is today, without Hulk Hogan first laying those steps down, it never happens. I've said it before too. I remember at one point, and I think it was when things weren't great between Terry and the WWE. They do all of those countdown shows. They were doing a ton of them, and it was top 50 wrestlers. And I think they had Hulk at 21 or something. And I remember screaming, "What? Are you kidding me? Was that just to be just to insult him or top 5 by God?" And to me, and we, I worked with Hulk. I wish that I had gotten to know him better, but he was so far in the stratosphere at that point, and he had a very great relationship with Gene Okerlund. And so most of the time when we did stuff, they always paired Gene and Hulk together because they had such magic between them. So it isn't, he's my pal, he's my buddy. I look at it from a purely objective viewpoint as much as I can, because I do have a soft spot for him. But really, there's no argument to me to say that without what he did in those early years, there was no one else who was capable. They certainly tried. They would have loved to have it happened with other outfits, whatever, but nobody's been able to match that. He set the stage, and it just took off. And we saw again and again and again. Vince McMahon realized that without Hulk, I got nothing here. I got to figure out a way to replace him, because no matter what, at some point, it's over.
Right.
And look how many people they tried to do it and couldn't, and they had to bring Terry back. So there's a testament right there. As far as getting back to what happened, I'm kind of astounded by it. I think that in some ways you get kind of this wave going of I gotta be against it. The Hulkster is not cool anymore. It's the new wave of, I don't know. I really don't understand it, because I think at this point he should just be celebrated for what he's done for the world of professional wrestling all the way around. So I don't know. I mean, maybe if you heard more behind the scenes of what happened, there's been other things that people would have been more upset about when they of Hulk coming out and taking down Yokozuna. I've still never forgiven him for that one.
Me neither.
That storyline was like, what? No, it doesn't make sense. And that wasn't fair to Brett and the whole thing. But if you look at it from a purely professional wrestling standpoint, yeah, I don't get it unless there's something I don't know, and I don't stay up behind the scenes that much on it. But really, I don't know. I don't know how or why that happened. Do you have a theory?
A couple opinions. One, when he got caught on audio saying racist remarks years ago, he never went on like a tour and apologized or went to rehab for insensitive feelings, like things like that. He didn't do the PR work to fix his for wrestling fans. He's never suffered through business deals. Like, I mean, he fell off. He sued Gawker, got all his money back from being exposed, and then supporting Trump these days. It depends how you feel about one side or the other. I don't care how you feel about Trump. The thing is, half of America doesn't like him. So you're in California, very blue state. There's Hogan. People don't like that. So I think there's so many balls juggling the air that you can't really pinpoint one or the other. But I'm with you. There's a whole world of people who have no idea about the outside world of Hulk Hogan's antics and the things he's done or said. They only know him as the man who body slammed Andre, the man who wears yellow. He's the guy that everyone, when you think of a wrestling promo, they do a Hulk Hogan impression without even realizing they're doing one.
Yeah. So exactly.
That's my thoughts on that. I think there's a separation of character and real person, and people are taking real person and just slamming into character, saying, well, I can't like your character because what you said in the real world.
Yeah. And I you know what? And now that you mentioned it, I think the political aspect, because, he pretty much had stayed out of it. I think that didn't let his politics be known, but going completely public, making appearances.
RNC. He was at the RNC.
Yes, exactly. And then now he's become, he's been like an ambassador. I think that Donald Trump has brought him in. Basically, the administration is going to do stuff. And so I think that exactly, California, please. And where do you think the politics are going to lie there? And then I think there's also this feeling now of people are anti-celebrity, no matter where you come from, poking your nose into politics and there's this feeling that you think that just because you're famous, I'm supposed to think the way you do. My feeling has always been, entertain me. I don't need to hear what you think or how you think I should live. And there's probably an element of that, not even just what side you're on. It's just that why are you doing this? Why are you getting up in front and being political? So that probably had something to do with it, especially in California.
It's been going for like weeks now. It's been going on since that happened. Like, that was the thing too, is like WPR people, when you talk to them, they're all like, no one's really saying like, what a great event. Wow, what great matches. It's all Hulk Hogan got booed by 18,000 people, but why? And that's where we still are here today. So I'm glad I got your thoughts on that. No. One more topic that might be a little iffy on feelings as well. Then we'll move on to more fun topics. Vince McMahon doesn't run the WWE anymore. Are you shocked to see that in today's world that he built all this up, and for allegations to come out against him, which we don't know? I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. I don't know if it's true or not. But how are you feeling about seeing Vince McMahon no longer running the company?
Yeah, it is really strange to see what is happening now. That Vince, because no matter what, I mean, from the very beginning, he was just everything. I mean, from top to bottom, no matter every detail Vince was involved in, had a say in, and the fact that he's gone. I mean, it's a whole different company now. Is really it's crazy, but at the same time, this has happened with other companies where you have somebody who starts the company who founded it, and then eventually the company outgrows that person and they are forced out. You think that how does that happen? Somebody is responsible for all the success of this, and then they get cast aside. The allegations, some new allegations, but they have followed Vince his entire career. Even when I was there was allegations of stuff, and it's that it isn't new, and that some of them were shocking. There's a few of the things, few of the details that came out that even was like, what? I think you know what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
But I watched that series that they had. That was years in the making, the one that initially began with Vince participating. And but I know people that were involved, connected to all that, and they thought that thing was a hit piece from the beginning. That and as they saw it starting to form, because it was made out of house, it wasn't done within the walls of the WWE, and getting these superstars to do it, because why wouldn't they do it? It was sanctioned by the WWE, so they got all of these guys to do the interview. And then with Endeavor coming in, and it was kind of, I feel in some ways where it was kind of let's close the coffin lid with this, and we're gonna really and I was a producer for I have been much of my career. I did documentaries early on. I know how you can. I work in the news business. Steve, you know this. You can craft a story any way you want to tell it.
Yep.
So they have all this material from these superstars, these personalities who are very close to Vince, and you can cut that part of the sentence out where you say, I remember I had so many arguments with Vince McMahon and didn't agree with what he had to say, and that's the end. That's the part I use. But I don't use the rest of that saying, but man, dude, I'd respect that man. He was one of the most creative people ever. And when it came down to it, he was right or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
So you can craft it any way you want. And I found it interesting that the biggest voice in that whole series was Tony Atlas. Really? That was, who gets the final word. Remember in the very end of this thing, when they're all saying, what's Vince McMahon's legacy, or what is this in there? And all of them are going like, like they that whole thing where they're thinking, well, that's a deep question. And I bet you got some really great answers from those guys once they thought it through, because they didn't want to just spit something out. But when you got this, like, and make it look like, oh, they couldn't think of something. And then Tony Atlas comes in, who was, I'm not saying anything about his career, his accomplishments, or whatever he did, but he was not behind the scenes guy, best friends with Vince McMahon, knew him better than anybody else. But he was the voice. If you think about it, you talk to people like, who did you hear from most in there? Tony Atlas. So
we had the best sound bites. That's
it wasn't.
why,
I'm just saying that it wasn't the most genuinely produced doc. And at the end of it, and I know for a fact that Vince McMahon was very concerned about what this was going to put, what kind of light it was going to put him in. And at the end of it, it was kind of like, meh. Okay. There's nothing. The first 5 or whatever it was, I don't remember how many episodes there were. Everything had already been sliced, diced over and over again. Screw job, all that stuff. Tell me something new. And then the end is like, oh boy, listen to this. This is what he was doing with this person, and you're like, okay, but that already been out too. So
that was a fish hook. I feel like that whole thing.
And I think that him just staying clear of it was the best move he could have made. So
100%.
But and I just have a feeling, and I don't know, but I don't think Vince McMahon is done. He's not a person who's going to go sit on a deck somewhere on a boat or something and fish. That's not his. It's not his DNA. He's gonna. So I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not attuned to that, but I just know what it was like when I worked with him, and I know people who have known him through that whole process since, and that's not him.
Right, and that trailer for the Netflix documentary, it was interesting because it just seemed like you were going to get all this juicy allegation stories, current allegations,
never before. Yeah,
and I'm like, oh my god, this is gonna 6-part series on all this that's going on right now. Oh my god! I start watching. I'm like, everything I saw in the first 5 episodes, I've seen on WWE produced DVDs, steroid trials, screw jobs, relationships with wrestlers. Like there was nothing new for a wrestling fan. I've talked to people who don't watch wrestling who watched that docuseries and was like, oh, I learned a lot. And I'm like, I learned nothing. I go, I learned that they hooked me with we're going to give you some juicy tidbits about this allegations. You get to the end, Bruce Pritchard's even's like, hey man, I don't want to do this because I know it's a hit job. And I was like, thank you, Bruce, for even saying that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that when they tell him, well, what, he said, whatever it was. And what do you really think of it? And he goes, okay, I'll tell you. And he just went off. And that was classic Bruce. I mean, but
like, I don't know Vince personally, but all I know is that the internet doesn't like him because of allegations. Is he guilty? No. Is he innocent? I have no idea. But to say someone's guilty without even being put through the court system.
Yeah. And I think we've become much more sensitive to see what our president-elect has gone through. We like him or hate him, but you can't look at stuff like that and not go, man.
Right. It looks bad.
What if they didn't like something I did?
Right.
And you would have, and imagine having no resources to defend yourself. Who's got that kind of money to defend yourself? If they want to ruin you, it's going to happen. Just, that's why like so many of those people ended up, would make deals just so it'll stop. I can keep my house.
Right. Yeah. And he recently he did pay off, I think it was $1.7 million back to the WWE and other organizations to like settle. One of the things he did was take money from the company to pay off someone with an NDA. Like there's so much stuff. Like I'm not a lawyer. I'm not, let's move on though, because I'm not that person. You said SummerSlam 92 though was your favorite event. Why was it your favorite event? Because I also want to know what your worst experience was at an event as well. But first off, best experience, you saying SummerSlam 92?
Yeah, I tell you, for a number of reasons. I think I explained a lot of it just because of the relationship with the folks in the United Kingdom. But it's also the Wembley Stadium, the number of people there, and the response of basically to see it develop outside of the United States, to be in a place that was out of our country, and to see the reception that we got there. And it was a great event. The whole thing with Brett and Davey Boy, it was a soap opera that whole time. Remember leading up to that match, nobody really knew what was going on with Davey Boy, and people were saying he's doing drugs. People were saying, that he had an infection in his knee, and he was all, whether or not he was even going to show up. And the story of and I interviewed Brett and about this too, about that he didn't know. He tried to talk to Davey all summer long. He'd leading up to it. He had laid out that match. Brett is very meticulous about that, where he'd have it on the legal pad, whatever, everything, and never got a chance really to converse with Davey Boy about what was happening. They get over there. Fortunately, Davey shows up, but nobody knows what's going to happen. And, there's two sides to that story of the match that, like Brett says, that Davey Boy, they get through the first, lockup, and Davey Boy says to him, I'm fooked, because he didn't remember any of the match. And Brett talks about how he talked him through the whole thing, the entire match. I don't know how that was possible. I mean, you can sit there if you look closely, and I've looked at that match, and you can see the once in a while. But that's if you have a trained eye and know what's going on. But I don't know. I mean, that match was phenomenal. I didn't see anything missed. You would have thought, right, there'd be something where Davey Boy seemed lost, maybe it was just, the motor skills took over, muscle memory. I don't know, because, it's like a dance out there, but it was a phenomenal match. And emotional. I remember, interviewing the family before. That wasn't out of work. Everybody was worried about him. Everybody was worried about how it would be perceived. The whole family this was all at stake. It really was. And it was a lot of personal stuff going on. And when it was over, there was this, you could feel, I remember I get emotional thinking about it now, of when they pulled it off, because I knew them very well, that whole, and the family, got close to the family. And for that, to them to be in the ring, I remember just tearing up and just chills, thinking, my God, they did it. So that was certainly a big part of it. It was so exciting to be over there. I mean, I hadn't really traveled the world that much, so that was fun. And to travel with all the guys, to be around Bobby and all those, that was fun, because it never stopped. With Gene. And then the other stuff that was going, like with the Road Warriors, and that the whole story behind that, what was going on with the frickin' dummy.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on that dummy? Because
oh my God,
I'm like, I'm sorry, what are we doing here?
Yeah. I knew those guys pretty well. They it's funny that they were such a serious, intense team, oh, what a rush, the whole, and and people thought they were so deadly serious, and boy, they'd rip your head off, which the two were very capable of doing. But they were some of the funniest people I ever knew. They were always kidding and fun to be around, but they hated that effing dummy. They hated that. It just made no sense. Like, where did it come from? And you think about it, what were they trying to do? Kill the team? I don't know. And Hawk hated it. Joe hated it, and they just, what choice did they have? But I mean, think about it. They come out on Harleys. They're riding motorcycles, and the dummy is like attached to the handlebars, and so. Yeah. That was kind of there was a lot going on with Mike at the time, with his abuse issues, and it came to a head there. And the story where he disappeared, Hawk disappears after that match. They don't know where the hell he is. The rumors he's hanging out with the English version of the Hells Angels. I don't know. And he was supposed to, and Joe tells the story that when he got back to the States, Mike disappeared. He goes back to the States. We have a television taping. I don't know. I can't remember how much after it was, but they had a television taping. Joe still didn't know where he was when they got to the TV taping, and he didn't show up. Hawk wasn't there. Just had gone missing. Well, they're a tag team. What is Joe supposed to do? And they ended up. I think they brought Crush in at the time, and to work with him, but it just didn't work. It was those two or nothing, and I felt bad for Joe, because without that other half, and that's what put food on his table for his family. And Joe was very serious about that, the business and taking care of things, and he had kids, and Mike had serious issues, and that's a shame that what happened with them, because you imagine what they could have done. They were still, to me, they're still, if not the greatest, one of the greatest tag teams for a thousand reasons for what they did. They took intensity and brutal physical action in the ring to a level that was just. I always love Joe says, we never hurt anybody in the ring. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, maybe, you can say maybe you didn't maim them. They like you didn't, that nobody ended up in a wheelchair, but you beat the shit out of people,
oh yeah.
But he said, no, it's but we took care to take care of people. Okay. But when you're on the shoulders of a guy who's, upwards of 250, can lift a Volkswagen Beetle, and then another guy comes off the top rope and then takes your head off, and you got to do this flip in the process to get on the.
Right.
It might hurt a little.
Yeah, they actually broke Henry Godwin broke his neck doing that, I believe.
Yeah. So, those two matches I think stood out to me from that event, and it wasn't. And it's funny because the Brett and David weren't even the main event, but they were as far as anybody else was concerned.
Yeah, the Macho Man Warrior match had a very wishy-washy finish.
Like and nobody, and not that it wasn't a big match to the people over there, but that's not the one that they really cared about. They cared about the one with Brett and Davey Boy. So, but it was just a great event. I remember just, and to this day, it's just one of my fondest memories. Of an event. Yeah.
If I could find that kid in the beginning of the pay-per-view where it's a little kid, he goes, British Bulldog's going to win if he wants to or not. And I'm like, I want to find this kid. Still, he's obviously a grown-ass adult now. Yeah. But, man, I would love to be like, so did you know that you become famous for just saying those at one line out of nowhere?
Yeah, maybe I'll run into him when I'm over there. We'll see.
There you go. There you go. Oh, my God. He's going to slip
if you're out there.
The toilet while you're,
right.
I love it. I love it. So then, yes, your favorite event. Do you have an event that you just like, please, I wish this event would end. Like, can we just wrap this up now? I'm not enjoying myself.
Well, yeah, and it wasn't it wasn't even professional wrestling. It was.
What was it?
Well, do you remember we dove into bodybuilding?
Oh, yeah, I do remember. WBF?
Yes.
I go pro.
The event we had in Los Angeles?
Was it the tug of war?
No, it was a bodybuilding event.
The actual pay-per-view convention. Right?
I think to this day it remains one of the lowest purchased pay-per-views in history. I don't think I'm far off when I say that. It was dreadful because there was the edict. This is when all the steroid issue was going on, and Vince had to tell these guys can't do the juice. Well, that's the only reason they looked like the way they did back then. And these guys looked awful. There was a guy, what was his name? Mike Sharp or something. I'm confusing him with the wrestler. But anyway, he was a bodybuilder, and he looked like a sumo wrestler by the time that event happened. And remember, Vince put them in costumes, and one was a Batman, and they came out, and imagine this, and then they're kind of flabby. Like, it was dreadful. And I was doing the backstage interviews, and honestly, Steve, I just like, please God, make this just get over. I don't want to be here. That was one of them. So, as far as our other events, there weren't too many. We always did the event on Thanksgiving. I didn't like being away. I always liked having traditional Thanksgiving, but that was just the business. That's what we did. But, I was always excited to be a part of those events. I do remember, and I think it was the event down in Texas. I can't remember what we called it. But anyway,
Tuesday in Texas.
Yeah, I don't know what it was, but it was one when Randy was going off on the angst of Elizabeth and the whole thing, and so we were doing this interview live backstage after his match, and Vince was in the room, and he told me, let Randy go, let him do what he's going to do. So he comes backstage, he's distraught, he's destroyed, he's going on, and eventually through this whole interview, and it's about, I don't know, 2-3 minutes, and I'm just holding the mic, and he just keeps going on, and he's like on his knees, and Vince, I see out of the peripheral view, and he's standing there off to the side, and he's doing this, like this, like, and I'm like, what the hell is that? What is he doing? What is he trying? And so eventually, Randy kind of, and it was kind of my cue then, where he just kind of curled in his ball. I said, okay, he's done talking, and I wrap it up. And when it's over, Vince is livid at me. He's like, what the hell, pal? What do I got to do? When are you, to listen to what I'm trying? I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, I told you to wrap. I told you to wrap it up. And I said, what do you mean rap? I didn't see anything. I said, this is rap.
Yeah, that's rapping.
This is rap. Something I could get. He goes, I told you to rap. He hugged himself. I said, that's wrap it up. I said, Vince, I've been doing this a while. I've never seen that as a wrap up signal. No. And he was just so pissed off at me. And it was really the only time that I was pissed back, and I said, you need to ask some of these crew guys what rapping is, how you rap somebody. And I walked out of the room and I thought, you're done. And I remember I saw Vince, outside in the peripheral, and I just glared at him and he looked back at me like, want a piece of me or something?
Oh man.
Yeah, it was very intense. And I thought that was my last pay-per-view. But I think that's, that's the thing with Vince, that standing up to him in a sense was, that meant something to him.
He liked that.
He was used to so many people just, oh yeah, okay, whatever. But it was like the only time that I felt that he'd really crossed it, because I'd always, done everything that I was asked to do. But how was I supposed to know by hugging yourself I'm supposed to rap Randy? Yeah.
When you said that, I thought he was saying like, oh, like hug him, like give him
hug
like
him.
a pat.
Yes,
it's okay, Randy.
I said that.
Okay,
I said that. I
fine.
said, did you want? I thought, like, do you want me to hug him? You're saying, console him?
That's what I would
wrap
get
it
from
up.
that.
Wrap it up.
Like,
whoever
right? said
crazy?
This is how you rap?
Yeah. Am I crazy? No.
I've never in my life, like when you think of universal symbols, this is wrap it up. Yeah. This is wrap it up, or roll the window down. Even though we don't have windows that do this anymore, this is still roll your window down. Like this.
Yeah, and I said that. I said, I didn't know you want me to hug him. What? I said, that's okay. I said, from now on, I know what the hug signal means.
Right. Oh, this means rap. He's like, I meant hug. I meant hug. Like, I don't know what you mean.
I want you to wrap it up. Wrap it up. Yeah.
You brought up Macho Man for a second. I think what the day you're talking about is this Tuesday in Texas when Jake the Snake gets slapped by Jake. Yes. And the build to that is a King Cobra being loose in the ring, and it's biting Macho Man on the arm. One of those graphic things I've ever seen in my life, still to this day. And where I live, that aired at 10 in the morning. I interviewed Jake about this. He's like, I had no idea when it aired and didn't know when it happened. I was like, it's 10 a.m. on a Saturday. What was the reaction for you personally and the boys being like, I'm sorry, I don't want to fight Jake now because this might happen to me? Yeah.
Well, you've heard the story. He's told it more than once. That Jake said how Randy didn't trust him and made him have the snake bite him. And so Jake, before he went out, he made sure that snake was not happy. I think he, a couple of
he told me,
and that thing was ready to bite, like bite anything. But all of us, how do you, even though somebody can tell you, well, it's devenomed, it doesn't have any venom. It's like, I don't care. I don't like a cobra biting me. Which though the python bite would be much worse, I think. But nobody wants a cobra to bite you, and just the fact that, man, that could not have been more graphic. The view of it, the way it happened, that thing would not let go. It was awesome. It really was. I remember saying that's one of the best I've ever seen, best bits I've ever seen. There's no question.
Yeah, that is still like in my brain, like still this day, like how did this air and how did they let it at 10 in the morning? I know you were part of the event center, and I think they cut to you. And that's when also Jake gets Damien squished by earthquake, and they cut to you, and you're like, we can't show this on TV. We can't show this.
Yeah,
and then you did.
Yeah, of course. Hey, what are you doing?
Turn away, but don't change the channel.
Yeah. Well, and that's just like the news business. What do we say to people before we go we want to warn you, what you're about to see is graphic. So it's like, oh, geez, we just made people turn off the TV. No, they're like, where? Granny, get in here. You got to see this.
If you say I got a bag of beautiful puppies.
So I always say that, the news business it took a lot from the world of professional wrestling.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, I think
Still
people don't
does.
understand that. That's like,
No.
dude, I don't think you understand news and wrestling. They kind of go hand in hand. You got to create a headline to
Yep.
get people to watch what's going on here. I got a couple more questions. We'll wrap it up though. But one of the things that happened while you were there as well is the Big Bossman has a rivalry with the wrestler Nails. Well, Nails is upset at SummerSlam 92 not getting a big payday. So he finds out about this. He finds Vince and Earl Hebner. I interviewed him. He told me he saw the whole thing where Nails leaps at Vince McMahon and is choking him. Yeah. And of course, people break it up and things like that. Are you shocked to hear that this happened while you're in the company? Like, what are you hearing from anybody else about that situation? Because to hear that Vince is choked out by another wrestler, you don't hear that very often in any story.
Well, Vince has talked talked about a bunch of incidents where, physical altercations with wrestlers. He was punched and pushed and, throughout his career early on, because, and I've talked about it before, when I got there, it was the Wild West. It was still the Wild West. Everything was old school. If you had beef with somebody in a match, you either took it out on them, stiff in the ring, or if it wasn't settled there, you settled it backstage. So that's pretty much how it worked, and Vince very much understood that. So that, and I do remember that incident very vividly. I didn't hear the whole thing, but I remember the aftermath of it. It was funny because whenever anything happens in the ring, and then they send, it used to be Pat Patterson would go out, and all those the suits.
Yeah, the producer
would run out on the stage,
yeah,
and in the ring, and they're getting in between them and everything, and the whole thing, gorilla. Well, that's what happened there. It's because they were, Vince would have an office wherever arena was. They'd set up some place where you'd go because it was like The Godfather. He would sit there, and then this was the chance for the boys to go, and they would talk about whatever the issues were at the time. So I think that when Nails came in, it was just Vince and him. And whatever transcribed didn't go so well for Nails. He didn't like what was being said and decided, I'm going to take care of this right here. And went after Vince. And the story goes, they went in there and he was literally choking Vince. And there were people pulling him off, and you could just see everything, and all the chaos and mayhem in the arena hallways there. And Nails coming out of there just like crazed. It didn't end up well for him, but I think he knew once he stood up and did that, it was probably going to end his time with the WWE. Now, another incident that I do know was there also. Well, I should say too, also, Chris Chambers is a really good friend of mine, and he was pretty much basically number 2 in the creative there for years and years and years with Kevin Dunn. And I had worked at Major League Baseball productions with Chris, and was one of the most talented producers I ever worked with still to this day. But and when the time came and an opportunity came up, Chris, I introduced Chris to Kevin, and they hit it off or whatever. They invited Chris to come in, and Chris was hired as one of the producers. That was back in 92 or 93. But it was the first television that Chris went to. It was one of the first things he did, and that happened. And I remember being backstage there, and he looks over at me and he's like, "Mooney, what have you gotten me into?" Like, what? I said, "Buckle up. This is just another week." And right. And so the other incident that really stands out to me, it was the whole Dynamite Kid and Jacques Rougeau. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
You remember that beef?
Yeah.
And like I said, back then, this was how things worked. You didn't have mediators. You didn't go in and say, we need to have a chat. Dynamite Kid had just literally humiliated Jacques in front of the boys. The story goes about how those guys were merciless. If they found a weakness in somebody, and Dynamite Kid was cruel. It wasn't just a rib. he was cruel. And he had been kind of riding the Rougeau brothers. Now Ray is a badass. Nobody effed with him, with Ray. Ray was a badass mother effer. I mean, he had been trained in martial arts. He was just could really handle himself. And at the time I think he had a boot on or something, had hurt his ankle or something, or a knee. So he wasn't real mobile. And when this all happened in the locker room, and I think what happened was, Dynamite Kid ended up slapping Jacques. And right there, Ray tried to step in, they broke it up or whatever, but that's what started it. And it just, instead of saying, okay, we're done here, it just escalated because there was no response to it. So they kind of sensed the weakness. And Jacques knew that, his cred in the locker room was gone. He had to get it back or he was going to have to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dynamite Kid was a badass mother effer too. No question about that. He could fight and he loved to fight. So he was just waiting for an opportunity for more of this to escalate this. And Jacques knew he had to do something. And Ray knew he couldn't take care of it. It was something that Jacques had to do. It wasn't something Ray who certainly could have done it, could have taken care, but it wouldn't have worked. Jacques still would have had that loss of credibility. And so Jacques tells a story. He was on my podcast. We talks about how when they were in the hotel rooms, and I think what he said what peaked is they were on a flight, and Dynamite Kid got on the speaker and said, the week or whatever, something over all these people, that
wow.
He's not going to do nothing or something. I can't even remember what the words, but it was kind of like that had escalated. And Jacques talks about how they would be in the hotel room, and they'd stand a mattress up, and Ray would or Jacques would punch Ray would show him how to punch this,
yep.
Because they knew if he was going to get his shot, it wasn't going to be many. He had to make sure it counted. And so anyway, they plotted it out, because Dynamite Kid was always surrounded by this group. He had kind of his clique. They had to get an opportunity where he was going to be by himself. And Jacques tells a story that he called his father, I think, and told him that, I'm going to do this. I've got to. And he thought his dad was going to have some reaction. He goes, well, he told him, he said, get a roll of quarters in your hand when you do it, because it'll have extra punch behind it.
Yeah.
And whenever they're at that arena and they waited for, Dynamite Kid to come out and out of the eating area and whatever. And Ray was there to make sure that nobody else got involved. And when he came around the shot, and he said it, whatever his name, as soon as he turned, Jacques hit him he said he hit him with everything he had. And he went down, and then he, Ray told him, you got to get on him, and then you got to finish it. And there were some suits there. Like I remember him telling me that Pat Patterson was there, and Pat tried to get in, and Ray said, no, step back. And when it was done, they got him out. Jacques and Ray got out of there, went over there, and went to the locker room, whatever, but knocked a bunch of Dynamite Kid's teeth out, and that was it. And so it was kind of like, okay, now what happens? Mm-hmm. And anyway, so he said they ended up having a meeting, and with Vince, and Vince said, this is not gonna happen. It's over. But we know what happened after that. Eventually, Dynamite Kid was out, and that was it. And Jacques had his, he went on to do what he did. But anyway, that just kind of sums up the way things were back then. And I remember that day that, it was this justice of, it sent a message out to people that, things are changing. You're not going to get away with this stuff.
Right,
and,
especially
it took a lot for Jacques to do that, because it could have gone really bad, and he knew that would have been it for probably his career, because he would have had to live with that forever. So, I mean, it's sad that that's what came down to. But that's the way it was back then. It was the wild, wild west. They didn't trust people like me initially. It took me a year to get in with those guys, and I just had to keep just showing up. And thank God for Gorilla and people like Gene and Alfred, who talked me through it and said, look, they're gonna ride you. They're gonna do stuff. They're gonna rib you. Don't fall asleep on planes. Don't, and when they do,
I've heard stories.
Yeah, don't retaliate. Just, don't let them walk on you, but don't just take it. Go and just keep doing your business. You're not one of them. That was one of the greatest piece of advice I ever got from Gino, from Gorilla, was just, you can be friends with them, but never forget you're not one of them. And that way, that carried me through. I had really good relationships with those guys, but I knew I didn't go to their hotel rooms. I didn't go to the bars with them. None of that would have ended well. And I didn't, and it served me well the whole time I was there.
Man, yeah, I've interviewed Jock and Raymond about this next story you're talking about, and Raymond pretty much told me, he's like, yeah, I was in charge of distracting Pat Patterson in the hallway, and they watched Jim Powers and Warrior and other people leave the locker room, and Dynamite didn't leave, so they knew, all right, this is the time. He's by himself, and knocked his teeth out of those quarters, and
I don't think I missed any of the details. Maybe you.
No, you got every detail. I've talked to Jacques twice about this, and what happened though was a little when Davey Boy ended up coming back to the WWE in '92, when Jacques was the Mountie and Raymond was doing backstage interviews. Davey and Mountie Jacques had a secret conversation in the shower, where Jacques was very weary of this setup. He felt like he was going to be attacked in that shower, and so when he went in, he made sure, like, Davey went in, Jacques would go in after Davey. So if someone was waiting to jump him, he would have like the upper hand and not realize go in there. And Davey just said, hey man, what happened before? I apologize. That wasn't me. That was my partner. I want to start new. I don't want any problems. And Jacques like, okay, but
good.
But he still said, like, I was still constantly on, my heels waiting to see what's going to happen next. But again, that was like what, 88. Now it's 92. Like, hopefully, things have changed there. But, I could ask you 1,000 questions, but before we wrap this up though, do you,
well, I just want to say though, it was sad how it ended up for Tom, for Dynamite Kid.
Yes.
That, you heard the story too, that he attacked, Davey Boy, his brother, and beat him mercilessly or whatever. And that was kind of it. And just the way he ended up with his life. And it's sad because he was a really talented professional wrestler. And
there's a Survivor Series, I think, where he can't even move. Like, his back is all seized up, and I don't even get in the ring. I think Davey Boy just gets pinned and they get eliminated because there's like all these tag.
And I really liked Davey Boy too. And it's sad that, how young he was, but not on that note.
On that note, let's talk about something else.
But it was all of it was just great. I have like so many wonderful memories, and
of course,
and like I said, I'm I get away from it, but I know it's part of me, and I'm really looking forward to going over to the United Kingdom. So can't wait for that.
Well, I can't wait for that as well. And of course, your action figure is coming out. Well, one final question before we wrap this up. Has there been discussions about you having a WWE Legends contract and WWE Hall of Fame? Do you want it? Do you need it?
No. I mean, that's big N-O. I haven't heard, nobody's ever whispered that in the halls of,
I've whispered it,
of the WWE. I'd love to be considered one of those legends, but I'm not. Trust me, I'm not. My phone's not blowing up with it, and I don't expect that phone call. But just to be connected, they have me on for many of the documentaries, which is kind of cool that they've had me. That they value my memories, and so I wish nothing but best. I think I'm very optimistic about the company. That the WWE is going to go on and on. And so is professional wrestling. And when WWE is doing well, they all do well. And I think, Endeavor is a different company. They're a gigantic entertainment conglomerate. But I think that they're smart enough to leave people in charge of that place and coming up with new material, new content with Triple H and the folks they've got there. I know they've got some good people there, really good behind the scenes. So I think it's all good. I do. It's bound to happen. Things change. The eras move on, but look at after all these years, I mean, it's still going strong. It's still going strong, making more money than they ever have. So.
I'm not kidding. The Netflix era, as Triple H announced a few weeks ago. It's the Triple H era, the Netflix era, the Sean Mooney era. Damn it!
Yeah, all right. That's right. Bring me back. Give me a show. I love it.
Damn it! Put them on
and
Netflix.
If I want to tell anybody want to get in touch, would like to get in touch with me, I love hearing from you. You can get me at that primetimemooney@gmail.com. And I'd love to hear from him because I Steve, we talked about it about possibly bringing back my podcast and doing. Getting more in depth with the legends of professional wrestling, because I'm at a different era of my life. I'm 65 and, looking at what's ahead. And I know that these guys have gone through the same things over the decades. They were professional athletes at the peak of their game. And at some point you can't do it anymore. And if you make it, Mark Calloway's the freak of it to be able to do what he's been able to do in the ring. But, most of them, your body is just beaten up. If you can last to 40, you're crazy. But what they have done to continue, to go on to what other things they found in life. And many of those episodes that I did were never really focused necessarily about specific events. We didn't talk about, all the SummerSlams all the time, or this thing that happened at this. It was about their lives, who have incredible stories. And, people talk about it all the time. What's the difference between these guys today and the guys from yesterday? Well, they traveled a much more difficult road. Many of them came up through the ranks of, starting in high schools and worked odd jobs. And everybody told them, what the hell are you doing? Probably especially their families, and they never quit. And so when they became these performers, they did it through life experience. When they encapsulated a character or something, they probably drew it from part of their lives. Now, these guys today, no question, they are the phenomenal athletes, but it's a little different than when you come up as a D1 athlete and your whole life, everybody's just told you how wonderful you are. And then this comes along, so it's just very different. And that's why I think those stories are so great and compelling. So who knows? I'm thinking about it.
I look forward to it happening someday. If I can be a wingman for you, I'll do it. We'll do whatever we need to do. But Sean Mooney, thank you so much for being here. Remember, you got all those gift cards for Christmas. Spend it on Sean Mooney action figures.
That's right.
Simple stuff. Or, just use your own money if you want to do that as well. But again, Sean, it's been a pleasure talking to you again. I'm Steve Fall. He's Sean Mooney. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.